A business owner I worked with pulled $300,000 out of his own company last year and paid $0 in tax on it. No offshore accounts, no loopholes, no audit risk. He simply understood one rule that you might not have heard about. The wealthy don't earn money differently, they own differently. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Tiffany, are you saying rich people don't pay taxes? Not at all. Wealthy people absolutely pay taxes. In many cases, they pay enormous amounts of tax. The difference is when they pay taxes, what they're taxed on and how they structure their financial lives. Some people grow up believing that making more money automatically means paying more tax. And if your entire financial life revolves around a paycheck, that's generally true. You work more, you earn more, your tax bill goes up. It's a very linear relationship. But the tax code wasn't written only for employees. It was also written for people who own businesses, invest in real estate, build companies, and take financial risks. Congress has spent decades creating incentives to encourage those activities because they create jobs, housing, products, and economic growth. Those incentives are written directly into the tax code. The problem is that most people never learn about them because they don't come up when you're simply earning wages. Think about it this way. Imagine two neighbors who each increase their net worth by $500,000 over the next several years. One does it by earning a higher salary. The other does it because the business they own and the commercial property they invested in increased in value. On paper, they both became wealthier by the same amount, but the path they took to get there is completely different. One created taxable income along the way, and the other primarily created equity. That's why I tell my clients that your tax return doesn't just reflect how much money you made, it reflects how you made it. The tax code doesn't treat every dollar the same. It never has. That's also why two people with very similar levels of wealth can have dramatically different tax bills. It's not necessarily because one person has a better accountant. It's often because they built their wealth differently from the beginning. And once you understand that distinction, a lot of things that seem unfair suddenly start making sense. You stop asking, why do wealthy people pay less? And start asking, what does the tax code encourage people to own? That's the question that changes everything. Hey, welcome back. I'm Tiffany Phillips, CPA and tax strategist. And if you're new here, this channel is exactly what it sounds like. Real strategies, real numbers, real client examples, no fluff, no vague advice about saving more receipts. Just the stuff your accountant might not be telling you, either because they don't know it or because they're too busy filing returns to actually plan ahead with you. What I'm about to show you isn't about working harder, and it isn't about some secret only rich people get access to. It's available to any business owner or real estate investor who understands how it works, which is exactly why I do what I do. People can go their entire careers never having a single conversation about how their income is actually taxed. They just accept whatever number shows up on their return every April and move on. That's not their fault. Nobody sits down and explains this stuff in plain English until now. So today I'm walking you through why the wealthy pay less in taxes using real client cases. I'm going to show you people with almost identical incomes and wildly different tax bills, and then I'm going to break down exactly why that happens and how you can apply the same thinking to your own situation, whether you're running a business, holding rental property, or both. Stick with me through this one because by the end, you might just look at your own tax return completely differently. If you have a job, your income shows up as a paycheck and it gets taxed as ordinary income, the highest category there is. But if you own appreciating assets, real estate, a business, stock, that growth isn't taxed at all until you sell. One of my clients paid zero tax on nearly $400,000 of wealth growth over 5 years. Her name is Paula, and it came from 2 rental properties that quietly appreciated year after year. No sale, no tax bill. A W-2 employee earning that same $400,000 in salary over 5 years would have paid over $100,000 in tax on it automatically. Every single year, no choice involved. That's one of the biggest differences between earning wealth and building wealth. Getting paid is taxed. Building equity isn't until you cash it in. People generally stop right there and assume that's the end of the story. It's only half of it. Eventually, you need cash. Selling is often the first solution people think of, but it isn't always the smartest tax solution. There's a concept people call buy, borrow, die. It sounds dramatic, but it's really just a simple, smart strategy. You buy an asset that appreciates. When you need money, you borrow against it instead of selling it, the same way a mortgage works against a house. A loan isn't income, so it isn't taxed. That $300,000 I mentioned at the start belonged to a client named Carl. He owns a business worth several million on paper and wanted to pull out $300,000 to buy a second property. Selling shares of his own company would have triggered capital gains tax, potentially 6 figures. Borrowing against the business instead got him the same $300,000 in cash without creating a taxable event, simply because he accessed the money through a loan rather than a sale. This is the difference between recording history and planning the future. One approach tells you to sell and pay the tax. The other shows you how to access the value without ever creating the sale that triggers it. This is the part that makes this permanent instead of temporary. When someone passes away and leaves an appreciated asset to their heirs, that asset gets a step up in basis. Its value resets to what it's worth on the day of death for tax purposes, wiping out every dollar of growth that built up over a lifetime. Wealthy families often think in generations instead of tax years. So picture Carl holding that business, never selling, borrowing tax-free whenever he needs cash, and eventually passing it to his kids. They inherit it at current value. That entire lifetime of appreciation is never taxed. Not by him, not by them. If he were to sell that same business during his lifetime instead, he's looking at capital gains tax on every dollar of growth, potentially over $1 million on a large enough sale. Same asset. The only difference is timing and structure. Tax planning starts long before tax season. If your business isn't structured with this in mind, you may be leaving your family's biggest wealth transfer sitting on the table. No one wants that. Everything we've covered so far is about preserving wealth you've already built. Now let's look at how you shrink what you owe on the income you're building right now this year, while you're still very much in the business. Cost segregation is one of the most overlooked tax strategies for business owners. When you buy a commercial or rental property, the IRS lets you write off its value over time, but standard depreciation spreads that across 27.5 or 39 years. A cost segregation study breaks the property apart, the electrical, the flooring, the fixtures, the parking lot, and reclassifies a large portion of it into categories that the IRS lets you depreciate in 5, 7, or 15 years. Some of it can be even taken entirely in year one. A client of mine bought a $1.2 million commercial property. Standard depreciation would have given her roughly $30,000 a year. A cost segregation study accelerated over $280,000 of deductions into year one alone. That's not a future benefit. That shows up on this year's return. Here's the point that can be easily missed. Good business owners build profitable companies. Great ones build tax-efficient companies on purpose from day one, instead of fixing it after the fact. On their own, each of these strategies works fine. Stacked together, though, they compound. Let me show you exactly what that looks like with a client named Derek, because this is where the whole system clicks into place. Derek owns a manufacturing company and the building it operates out of. 2 years ago, he was profitable, paying himself a reasonable salary and writing a large check to the IRS every year that was slowing down how fast he could reinvest. Step one was a cost segregation study on his building that pulled a little over $210,000 of depreciation into year one instead of spreading it across 4 decades, dropping his taxable income significantly. Step two, Derek needed $250,000 to open a second location. He could have used cash from the business, sold an asset, or taken money out in another way, but the tax result would have depended on how the company was structured and his basis in it. Instead, he borrowed against the equity in the building. Same principle as Carl. That loan gave him the capital he needed without requiring him to sell the property or creating taxable income simply from receiving the loan proceeds. In a single year, Derek reduced the tax owed on income he was already earning and accessed the capital needed for expansion without selling the building or triggering tax simply to obtain the funds. His previous plan would have required him to give up liquidity or dispose of an appreciating asset. By borrowing against the building instead, he kept the asset, preserved its future growth potential, and had the cash available to expand. And that building keeps appreciating. Hold it long-term, pass it down eventually. The same step up in basis from Carl's story applies here too. 1 asset, 3 strategies: depreciation today, tax-free borrowing along the way, and a tax-free reset whenever it transfers. That's what stacking and winning at it actually looks like. These aren't 3 unrelated tricks, but one system working on the same dollar from 3 different angles. The tax code doesn't just reward hard work, it rewards ownership. And once you understand that, you stop asking how to earn more and start asking how to keep more. Comment strategy below and tell me whether you're a business owner, a real estate investor, or both, and I'll build the next video around what you need most. If you're looking for more help and insight with business finance, grab my book, Your Biggest Expense. There's something in there for everyone. And instead of getting lost in the digital content fray, you can keep this around to refer to whenever you're making new business plans, thinking of restructuring, or wondering why you're paying out so much. Give it a read. The link is in the description. Thanks so much for sticking around. If this episode sparked an idea and you know someone else who might find it interesting, please take a moment to share so that we can get our message out and help business owners to realize their full potential by making strategic decisions with their capital for themselves, for their families, and for their financial freedom. Feel free to leave a comment. I read them all. And remember, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So keep more.